with a bang. Energy and change came to every part of our universe. Seismic or small, it continues.
Change is all around us, shaped by technology and human ingenuity. We can make it work for you and your business.
Good morning and welcome to Bloomberg's CEO Forum, the future of connectivity. My name is Alex Webb and I'm excited to kick things off virtually today. New communication technologies don't just set the pace of change for the telecoms ecosystem. The hyper-connected age in which we live is also the catalyst for a panoply of other industries. It lets them offer new products and embrace new practices that can help improve efficiency and profitability, but also find solutions to many of the critical challenges that we face as a planet. And in many ways, the pandemic has only accelerated that trend. Today, we'll be talking to leaders and pioneers from across the global telecoms community to discuss cutting edge and practical use cases of 5G, the Internet of Things, and AI. We'll be asking how intelligent connectivity, accelerated by 5G, is transforming global business and how such innovation is being managed sustainably for the planet. Before we get started, we just have a few housekeeping announcements. Firstly, I would, of course, love to thank and acknowledge our sponsor, Accenture. I'd also like to welcome all of you tuning in from around the world, including the thousands of listeners on social media and via the Bloomberg terminal. Do please make sure you're using Firefox or Chrome as your browser. Refresh your browser if you're having any issues with the sound. You can restore windows using the buttons at the bottom of your screen, and the size of each window is adjustable. You can also join the conversation via social media using the hashtag #TheFutureOf. We also encourage you to follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook using the handle Bloomberg Live or Business. So let's start the programming. I'd like to hand over now to Annette Rippert, the Group Chief Executive for Strategy and Consulting at Accenture. Over to you, Annette.
Welcome, and thanks to Bloomberg. This is the third year that Accenture has partnered with Bloomberg to host this CEO Forum, and it's an ideal time for us to be reconvening, albeit virtually. Why is it such a good time? Because the future of connectivity is more relevant than ever. There's so much to be proud of right now. Consider this: the communications companies played a crucial role, more than that, essential, to keeping cities, communities, businesses, and economies functioning properly during the global pandemic. The high levels of responsiveness and reliability of communication services providers in the world's very challenging times have earned these companies increased trust. The evidence is in Accenture's research. We found that 92% of consumers said that their CSP met and exceeded their expectations in terms of service during the pandemic. And our research shows that when consumers want a single provider of digital services like smart home, e-health, and digital payments, 50% say that they prefer for the provider to be their CSP. Meanwhile, 62% of consumers say they trust their CSP for their data security. Now, I know we all aspire for 100%, and you're striving for improvement in this each and every day. But it should please you to know that 62% is a greater percentage trust score than any other communications and data platform. My point is, the communications industry is in a good place. The foundation of recognized reliability and well-earned trust is valuable as we confront the future of connectivity together. The industry is reaping benefits from early investments in digital transformation. And that said, we can do more for our current business operations and future revenue opportunities by making necessary changes, like migrating to the cloud and building out to the edge, partnering to create private networks where necessary, and more. Industry has a tremendous amount of opportunity to build on their platform of trust, to develop new and complementary services that'll power innovation across many industries. The communication industry's opportunity is to be the backbone of transformation in industries around the world. Now, this, I have to mention, is thrilling to me personally. I'm a technologist at my core, and I grew up like many of you, leveraging the power of complex networks to help clients innovate. I spent 2 decades working in telecom and tech companies before I led Accenture's technology business. And today, as our group chief executive for strategy and consulting, I lead a global team of more than 40,000 people helping C-suite executives continuously innovate and build resilient organizations for a fast-changing digital economy. Now, at Accenture, we embrace this idea of the communications industry as the backbone of transformation for many industries, particularly in light of certain trends that are defining the future of global business. In June, Accenture issued a new research report called Business Futures 2021, The Signals of Change. The report is a result of input of more than 400 researchers around the globe, a survey that includes more than 2,600 C-suite executives and vast economic modeling and data science. From that, we identified 25 signals of business change that we think impact the way the world works. And from that, we detail out 6 of these signals, the most urgent and important ones that are taking place right now. Every one of these signals is relevant to the communications industry, but I'll talk about just one of them here with you today. Technology has enabled the sophisticated blending of physical and virtual worlds. We call this real virtualities. We've already seen the power of real virtualities in gaming, in entertainment, in retail, and boy, in the way we interact every day. And tech-savvy retailers, for example, enable their customers to try on clothes, or makeup, or accessories like eyeglasses virtually at home or in a virtual dressing room in their store, and automatically charge customers on their credit cards, relieving them of the need to stop by a checkout counter. Such tech-enabled service delights and maybe perhaps spoils customers. But as they experience more of it, they're going to expect it everywhere. And the opportunity for the communications industry to fuel innovation in this area is enormous. Hence, your opportunity to revolutionize the way that businesses work in the world. As virtualities become more real, businesses can go beyond serving customers better, operating more efficiently, and enabling greater collaboration across their own employees, in fact, across geographies. So real virtualities can mitigate the challenges of, in fact, recruiting and retaining talent by removing the idea of location as a barrier to attracting the very best workers and having them work virtually. This accelerated blurring of the physical and virtual world means that the world will become even more connected, and it'll do so independent of location. Governments around the world are responding to the advancement of real virtualities. In fact, some have been very clever to attract remote workers. Countries as diverse as South Africa, Barbados, and Greece have launched digital nomad visas and reduced income tax rates. Okay, well, across industries, business leaders are taking notice of these kinds of changes and preparing for the future. Accenture's Business Futures 2021 research found that 88% of executives said that they're investing in technologies that'll enable their organizations to create these virtual environments. And 91% said they intend to continue to increase this investment over the next 3 years. So this is why I'm so excited to talk with you this year. Tomorrow's highly dependent on enhanced connectivity. 5G, plans for 6G, and fiber are critical areas of growth and essential conduits to global growth. And as the next session of our guests from Vodafone Business and the Ford Motor Company will highlight, you'll see this come to life. Clearly, communications technology is at the heart of the transformation of these industries. In fact, can any business run without their own Internet of Things or cloud in place in order to support those operations? No. And as we all know, cloud does not exist without high-speed connectivity, connecting all of our resources. And now, ever more, as we extend to the edge, this becomes increasingly important. The communications industry is well positioned to help other industries transform, increase its own growth rate, and make the world work better. As I see it, it's a win-win-win. The big looming question, of course, is how to pay for it. And there's no easy answer to this question. There's no one-size-fits-all solution. We're seeing many companies in the communications industry take on loads of debt and radical cost-cutting measures. Some bolster these efforts with government support. Some companies are seeking partner investors to help support their investments in 5G, which is expected to total over $1 trillion in the investment period from 2019 to 2025. Some operators are restructuring their operations, splitting their core network business from their service capabilities to bring to bear ROI opportunities from the parts versus the whole. Cloud native operator entrants in growth markets are creating new opportunities for CSPs to run their businesses more efficiently. So regardless of the path, digitization of the enterprise will be the key to the communications industry continuing reinvention. Further investments in the cloud will unlock trapped data. Advancements in AI will improve customer care and make operations more agile and responsive to market needs. And the acceleration of intelligently connected mobile devices driven by 5G networks will, if led properly, enable positive and sustainable social impact, such as improving the efficiency of smart cities and transportation and energy networks. We'll hear about that in today's session with our guests from AT&T Business, Telefonica, and JBG Smith. I hope you see today as I do. This is a time of revolution, not evolution. And as I thank you for joining me for this session, I'd like to issue a call to action for everybody in the communications industry and other industries. That is, be intentional. Your leadership in the future of connectivity depends on embracing trends that have been accelerated and new opportunities that have been amplified over the last 18 extraordinary months. A bright future looks like this. Decision makers act with intention and purpose and courage. Leaders pursue strategies that embrace change, leading to more innovation, more productivity, more resilient and sustainable economies, and an even more connected world. So how do we accelerate innovation and growth? It's up to all of us. Thank you.
Hi everybody, I'm delighted to have Chris White from Ford and Vinod Kumar from Vodafone Business here with me today. My name's Tom Seal. I cover tech, media and telecoms in London for Bloomberg. And today it's quite a particularly good pairing, I think, because Ford and Vodafone are collaborating on using 5G in a vehicle battery plant in Essex, which I believe is the first of its kind in the UK. So perhaps a good place to kick off on things we can learn from this is maybe if both of you can tell us a bit about the work you're doing together, using 5G in manufacturing for an electric vehicle battery workshop. So maybe Chris, if you'd be kind enough to kick off and explain specifically what it's letting you do and how you're using it.
Okay, so it's in a facility we call ePrime, which is where we're trying out the new technology we're going to need to make electric vehicles, specifically the motors and the batteries that we're going to use, or that we're going to make in really large volumes. Obviously, you can already see we're doing that, and majority of the parts for those vehicles are coming from our North American facilities at the moment. But over the course of the next few years, we're going to be rapidly expanding within Europe to do the same thing. And that gives us a real opportunity to plan what we call factories of the future, right? Only kind of the future is now. It's a one-time opportunity. We've gone from having engine plants and transmission plants, and they're going to start to decline as people migrate from those types of vehicles. To needing to build the parts for electrification, and of course that means we've got this almost one-off footprint opportunity to change all of our plants over, and as we do that, well, we need to think about what technologies we need, and one of those key technologies is wireless connectivity. It's typically a very hardwired type of environment at the moment. Which is, we'll talk about it, I guess, as we go through this, really constrictive in how you make things. And so we want to change that. And, 5G is probably a forerunner in terms of the type of technology that we could use. So we've worked with Vodafone. This is a collaboration project with Vodafone and a number of other partners to introduce one of those networks, a mobile private network, into this trial pilot facility we've got here in Essex, and we're trying out the technology. We're about a year in, and we've got another year to go.
Could you quickly give a couple of little examples of what it's letting you do? Is this kind of letting robots talk to each other? What exactly is it doing?
One thing's for sure, we don't necessarily understand this technology very well. It's new to us. It'll be new to all the factories all over Europe that we use this technology in. That is the technology for making electric motors. And as a specific example, we're going to use a lot of laser welding, and we're going to use that very specifically. So it's actually something that not many people have done, and there are a few experts throughout the world who can help us with that, but actually we need them on the shop floor, and we need to connect them. So we want to use 5G to make them telepresent on the shop floor. So that could be through being able to get all the data from the machines. They're a very data-rich machine. There's a lot of data coming out of the machines. So it could be about transferring that data to the cloud, where they can see and interrogate it and help us with what's going on the shop floor. Or it could be via augmented reality, wearing the people on the shop floor wearing headsets and getting help directly from those people who may be elsewhere, whether that's one of our consortium partners called the Welding Institute based in Cambridge, a place stacked full of, the world's best welding experts, but they're, an hour and a half away in a car. And that's to us here in Essex. But when we start building parts all over Europe, then having them available will be a massive asset to us. So this is a great opportunity to use that technology.
Fantastic, thank you. And if I can bring Vinod in here, we're just over a year into this specific partnership, and Vodafone has been striking various other partnerships as well with energy companies as well. What are you learning about 5G's usefulness for manufacturing and enterprise? What do you know now that you didn't know a year ago when you started striking these deals?
Firstly, I want to acknowledge Ford and Chris and his team for the great collaboration in the factory that he referred to in Dunton in Essex. It's a great example of having the power of 5G really tested in a real environment. And some of the things that we're learning is, one, that it is a journey, right? And that as you're going through it, both Ford and us are learning about the power of the technology and some of the practical challenges we have to deal with when we take the technology, which we know can deliver superior latency and incredible throughput. And then by putting it in the live environment, integrating it into workflows, into systems, is an experience that we will all benefit from. And specifically what we're doing with Ford, we're working with many other manufacturing companies as well in plants of different types, and the learning in each of these situations just feed into each other. A really important thing we knew going in, but the ecosystem, it's not just about Ford and us working together. It's working with the Welding Institute, like you mentioned. It's working with the equipment manufacturers. It is working with a whole range of new devices, dongles, sensors, gateways, and the number of choices, which are 5G-enabled sensors, maybe 2 years ago wasn't that much, and is steadily increasing, and it will continue to grow. So and how you integrate all these different sensors and dongles and devices into workflows and to make sure that they all work within a factory environment is a big learning. How pulling the ecosystem together, I'd say, is probably our biggest learning. And then we're also finding that, yes, it is about the flexibility of 5G allowing robots, multi-purpose machines, AGVs, cobots, all working without wires. But equally, within this environment, every customer has the need for a customized product. But how do you then work with a reconfigurable set of solutions so it reduces the cost of ownership and the speed of deployment for each customer? So there's also a whole commercial angle that we're discovering, and how we design our products and our library of solutions, I'd say, is the other end of the technology. So you have 5G in the middle, you have ecosystem of partners on one side, and on the other end is how do you make it commercially viable so it can be deployed at scale. So those are some of the lessons I'd like to call out.
Absolutely. I mean, it really seems like 5G is a team sport. You need lots of different companies playing roles for cloud computing, data centers, AI, systems integration. And so, we're seeing lots of those partnerships. And you actually hit on my next question there, Vinod, at the end there. I'm quite interested in what kind of benefits 5G might actually, yield on the bottom line, really, when it comes to costs, efficiency, or even, other wraparound benefits, things like security. If either of you would like to chime in on that point.
Yeah, I can maybe start, and Chris can add a lot to it, I'm sure. But firstly, I'd say that we're in the early stages of the journey. But even at this point, and I speak to global CIOs and heads of manufacturing and so on almost every week and get their feedback on the technology. And the interest and the understanding of the power of the technology is there. Now it is about implementing it, and we are involved in use case deployment in limited environments or proof of concepts. There was a Capgemini research that was recently done that only 30% of the organizations are actually making use of the technology. However, of those who are using the technology, 60% are confirming that they're realizing benefits, right? That's one thing to keep in mind. The other important commercial angle to this is today it is still a little bit in a DIY mode, right? Or in a customized mode. And it's quite natural at the early stages of the technology. And quite often, especially for mid to smaller size businesses, they have very clear idea of one big use case, right? However, that may not be enough justification for them to roll it out in a factory or a warehouse or in a hospital. So all of them are asking us for, do you have a library of other ready-made solutions that we can add to the use case we've already identified in order to get the business case, with a reasonable payback and return on investment so that we can deploy it. And so a lot of what we're doing at Vodafone is, as we build these use cases, is trying to see how we can, obviously, what is customized for a business has to remain, that IP has to remain with them. But there are other elements that can be transferred across industries, across customers, in order to reduce the barrier to entry. So I'd say this is a really important aspect. Focusing on the technology is important. The power of the technology, there's no question. We've demonstrated that it's let me just lightly say, it's magic, right? It can bring many dreams that we've all thought about to life. But the commercial viability is also something that has to be worked on.
And Chris, how about you? What are you seeing in terms of, things you couldn't do before, or processes that, could, and I know it's early days, but processes that could be faster?
I mean, I guess I came to this with a fairly, basic requirement, which is, as I mentioned, our facilities have always required, this hardwiring of every machine that we got to this network so that we can understand in great detail what's going on. And the reason we do that is because, we have to have that understanding of what's a very complex picture of what's happening in our factory, no more so than when we launch that facility. Everybody's, business pages are full of, car companies that have messed up launches. That seems to be something that people, people measure fastidiously. And we, we recognise that it is a really important time, and we need to understand exactly what's going on. And unfortunately, often when you peel back what's going on inside those launches, it's that lack of clear data coming from the shop floor, because that network takes a long time to put in place and to build, and often we're we're not alone. Car companies are building facilities without those eyes, without being able to understand what's going on. So having immediately available data the minute you wheel the machine into the factory, because it's got great wireless connectivity, would be amazing for us, right? That would be perfect. So that was the going in point before I even got to, this has great latency, or it has the ability to capture even more data than we would normally want. And so it's very much like Vinod just said, it's about building up that expectation of all these other things you can get, because obviously, if I said it was to just take away today's wired network or even a Wi-Fi network, if we got it to work as well as this, and it can't, that's not going to cut it in terms of the investment that's needed for the network. You need to have all these other business cases built up. So I think that's, those are the things that was like sort of first base, but now we're seeing some great opportunities with capturing large amounts of data. So the amount of data we can get out of the welding process and the number of welds that go into an electric vehicle is phenomenal, and every single one of them is an electrical connection, and every single one of them is an opportunity for your car not to work. So it's absolutely vital we capture that data and hold it so that we understand and build up a great picture of reliable vehicles. So this technology enables that. And it's, it's high definition vision data. So it's pictures many times over per vehicle. And we've got to capture all that data. And in some cases, we want to take that away and manipulate it with artificial intelligence. So that's using powerful computing somewhere else. So that gets into, edge and all those sorts of things. So it really kind of mushrooms. And, I think the mistake people are making is, what's the business case for 5G? Well, there probably isn't a business case for 5G. There's a business case for all the things you want to do with it. It's a fantastic enabler for those things.
Yeah, and Tom, if I can just give an example.
Oh, yeah.
Tom, if I can give an example from, say, healthcare, right, which is just moving from manufacturing. We're finding a lot of interest in the healthcare space. Obviously, it's very topical these days, given the strain that the healthcare systems have been through. So everything from having connected hospitals that track patients throughout as they're leaving an operating room where they've had surgery, and through a big hospital to their to the room where they're going to rest and recover, tracking their vitals and making sure that they're getting the support they need if there's any emergency, is an application that's being trialed right now in Germany. We have, in a hospital, I didn't realize it, but the millions or tens of millions of euros or pounds or any other currency of equipment that gets misplaced. Just tracking that alone, one of the hospital administrators said will justify that. But in a hospital environment, to wire everything is going to be really difficult. So 5G plays, when you build a mobile private network covering a hospital, is a great use case. Remote surgery, we talk about it. It's no longer a figment of imagination or science fiction. It is something that we have actually tested in multiple countries and shown that it works. But even before you get there, because there's obviously regulations that have to be worked through, patient consent that is required. But assisted surgery, where you have remote specialists guiding a surgeon, sitting in another country or in another city through a complex surgery, is something that is happening today using 5G networks. So, there are some very powerful use cases, and when to start the journey, but very quickly, then there'll be other things that can be added on, given the latency, the speed of connectivity, as well as the security possibilities that 5G offers.
Well, if I can bring up perhaps the rather big and blunt question that many people have about 5G, and perhaps this is for Vinod firstly, Vodafone and its big rivals, you're all investing billions into 5G, the airwaves, the equipment, developing the applications that are going to run on top. So when are investors, going to be able to have some confidence about these business models? I think, Chris just said it's not a business model in and of itself, but it kind of lets various others mushroom out of what it enables. I mean, what would you say to that point when you see investor skepticism, for example?
Well, if 5G was just being rolled out on its own without demonstration of the use cases like we're doing, as an investor, I would be concerned. So I think that real test is, what solutions are you building on top of 5G? Are you enabling your 5G network infrastructure accessible easily to systems integrators, to application developers, to enterprises, so they can enable the 5G benefits into workflows, into other solutions? That, for me, that's what, maybe I'm biased because we're doing it, but I think that's the test, because just consumers are not going to pay more for 5G just because you have 5G, right? Your experience of downloading a Netflix film will be much better, but are you going to pay more for it? Some may not. Gamers may be willing to pay for it. But business customers definitely are beginning to see that 5G combined with technologies like Edge bring alive the power of AI, bring alive the power of AR, VR, mixed reality. And they're willing to pay for that. But we need to show the business outcomes. As Chris said, it's not 5G for the sake of 5G. Okay, fantastic. It offers mobility. But what can you do with that mobility on a shop floor, right? That's what we need to really focus on, and investors should be testing us for that.
Right. Okay. And you announced the 5G factory, if I can call it that, in June. It's been an unusual year. What has been the effect, if any, of the pandemic on the project and your work?
Yeah, of course. So I think actually, not so much. I think there are a few people who are quite sceptical that we would get done what we've done, but we delivered the network pretty much on time. Some small delays, obviously. We needed people to come to the UK to install it. So we lost a little bit of time there, but actually, surprisingly, a lot of the commissioning can be done remotely. So many times things were going on without anybody even being there, which was great. The Ford team have been fantastic. We pretty much kept working on site almost throughout. We had some other things we've been doing. We did around the pandemic. But they took priority. So we built 12,000 ventilators for the NHS. We installed 2 surgical mask manufacturing machines actually in the building where we have this 5G network now. Those kind of things kind of took a bit of a priority, but once we were kind of back on track with our normal business, the system itself has pretty much run to plan. So we're where we want to be. This next year is now about testing out the facility with all the equipment we've got there. But remote working is really important. I suppose the key thing about the pandemic is it's taught us all an awful lot about, not just doing what we're doing now, talking like this, but how do I run a factory? How do I get support when I need it, where I need it? And the ventilator challenge that we did was a great example of that. We built all those ventilators with a very small company who made a fraction of that number of ventilators normally, and yet we really, really needed their expertise. So there were times on the production line where we needed support with the ventilators. You imagine they get tested significantly before they end up out in hospitals, and during that test process, there are all sorts of questions that crop up and all sorts of help and support that were needed. So we used headsets, HoloLens headsets, to get that help. And we quickly learned, the limitations of Wi-Fi. It's a little bit patchy. One or two headsets was fine, but a factory full of them would have been a disaster. So, in those sorts of scenarios, 5G will be so much better. That opportunity to have that seamless connection with somebody else across, what is really vital work. That will be really stunning.
It sounds like you were able to repurpose the facility very quickly as well.
Yeah. So we did as the masks were done in that building. We had a separate facility which equally we repurposed in less than sort of a month really, and we were up and running. It was a fantastic achievement by the whole consortium.
Amazing. Vinod, looking forward 5 years or so, when 5G projects may have sort of been a bit more matured, when it's widespread, when maybe it's even, paying for itself in some sense. How do you feel the role of the telco will have changed from how people understand it today? Today, people maybe see it as, a pipe for connectivity. Will it be a different kind of actor in a few years' time when there's many of these enterprise networks?
Yeah, definitely. Being a pipe for connectivity is vital to all the digital things that happen on top of that. So we should never underestimate the value of the pipe. However, with 5G and mobile private networks, like I said, we need to think about it not just on a standalone basis, but of what goes around it and on that connectivity fabric. So we're very much focused on how do you make the connectivity layer integrated into the edge computing, for example. How do you make the data that is extracted available to customers in a way that it is user-friendly and can be used either by the customer or their partners, or in the cases they choose to expose the data to third parties. So we're thinking way more holistically about it. So what does this mean is I believe that we won't just be offering 5G connectivity, we'll be offering mobile private networks that are public and private, which means you need the knowledge of an operator, because there'll be certain applications which are purely private, right? But 50% of the applications of mobile private networks are for hybrid applications. So the customer will want to use it both in the private environment and also have it traverse and work as effectively on the public network. Right? And in those cases, it's only a telco, an operator who has that expertise that can offer that seamlessness. So that's one thing. The second is we'll morph from being just a connectivity provider to being a platform provider, so that applications can be built on top of the underlying connectivity. And selectively at Vodafone, our plan is to move into certain vertical applications and certain horizontal applications. I'll give you an example. Worker safety or remote worker solutions can work in a mine, they can work in a port, they can work in a manufacturing facility, they can work in a warehouse, right? There's no need for our customers to go and build that solution stack themselves. We will have components like that available in our library of solutions to use. So we see this as an opportunity to go beyond just being a pipe provider.
And this is why Vodafone is, planning to hire software engineers, because I think we'd all accept that 4G has delivered enormous benefits, but perhaps the economic benefit of those innovations, things like Uber or streaming YouTube on the train, have not necessarily accrued to the telcos. So this is an opportunity for the telcos to get in on the ground floor and help develop those applications.
But that's one of the reasons why we're hiring thousands of software developers. In addition to that, it's also about becoming more self-sufficient when it comes to creating services in order to create unique IP, but also to make sure that we do it at the right cost and we can get things out very quickly rather than purely depending on third parties to do that. Second is networks are moving to being more software driven. So you look at the move towards software SD-WAN and SD-LAN and so on. So that's important that we are knowledgeable on how to configure and develop software ourselves than depend on third parties. So many reasons, including moving up the stack to offer solutions such as the ones we just described.
Fantastic. One question that was submitted by our audience, and also Chris very briefly alluded to earlier, was the role that AI could play on top of 5G in private networks, and how that could add a lot of value. So I don't know if, Chris, you could speak about that specific example you were talking about, and maybe Vinod, you've come across others as well.
Yeah, so that if we take all these images of wells, or we have machines that are starting to, we're measuring how they're behaving, thousands of, lots of sensors over the whole factory, actually kind of asking people to understand that data and interpret that data in the volumes we're talking about will become, really impractical. So it's really important, actually, that we have AI looking at data and being able to highlight anomalies for us to react to. And at the moment, a lot of that computing is done at the shop floor in computers that are on every machine. It's unmanageable, and it's also low quality computing. They're not fantastic machines. So being able to get that to a place quickly using 5G, where we can put a real high quality level of computing around it with a really clever amount of management around it as well, I think that's really important to us. So that's really exciting for us. So we're starting work. One of the partners, Lancaster University, is taking some of the data that we put in the cloud and is applying artificial intelligence to that to see what the possibilities are.
No, if I can just build on that, Tom, the sheer volume of data that will come out of the 5G applications, it's going to be humanly impossible to process them and to effectively use that volume of data, and that's where AI comes in, and it'll have many different applications. And quite often it's feeding the human enough information so that the human can make the final decision. I'll give you an example from surgery, right? So we're working with a company in Spain now that has technology for both remote surgery, but also for training doctors while they're doing operations. And the 5G network is capturing huge volumes of data. It's sending to high performance computing, and then comparing it with tens of thousands of other similar operations that have been done, doing pattern recognition, and then giving the best choice to the doctor on where to make the next incision, right? That can only be done with the power of AI coupled with the speed of 5G networks, and obviously lots of other visual recognition technology and so on. So it is AI, I think, assisting humans, as well as certain applications. The machine will do the pattern recognition and make choices on its own.
Great. Well, I think we are unfortunately basically out of time. There's a few more questions I would have loved to ask, but we'll have to wait. And I'd love an update on how the facility is going, and when things start coming off the line. Please call me. So thanks very much for your time, Chris, Vinod, and I hope it was interesting for everyone watching.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Matthew Bloxham. I'm the head of Telecom, Media and Technology Research at Bloomberg Intelligence for the EMEA region. And over the next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to give you some thoughts about the outlook for the global telecom sector. Now, before we get going, just a quick introduction to Bloomberg Intelligence, or BI for short. We are the research arm of Bloomberg, and we provide data analysis and insights to our terminal clients to help them with their investment decision-making process across equities, credit, currencies, and macro strategy. Now, the event today takes place in the afterglow of Mobile World Congress Barcelona that took place in late June, a bit later than its usual February to March slot, and with quite a fewer people than usual, about 20,000 people attended in person compared to the usual 100,000 or so that make the trip to Barcelona. But the event was as full as ever of content, and it's quite hard to distill that into a single slide. But there was a lot of industry backpacking about the ability to keep networks running through the pandemic, despite a huge surge in capacity and data running through those networks. There was a lot of discussion about the acceleration of digitalization and how that's affecting the industry. There was even some commentary about space technology with an interesting keynote from Elon Musk about Starlink. And there was a lot of content about the mobile industry's contribution to sustainable development goals and climate goals. There was even some discussion around 6G, the future of the industry. Yes, that's right. Even though 5G is only just about getting going, the industry is talking about 6G. Now, despite all of that kind of positive rhetoric, the industry isn't doing so well on the stock market. If we look at industry performance since before the pandemic, so late 2019, telecom services stocks are roughly flat, whereas the wider industry is up about 30%. Similarly, forward estimates for profit from the industry are pretty much flat too, whereas they're up about 14 or 15%. For the MSCI World Index constituents. And why is that the case? And I think really it's quite simple. Despite all of this investment going in by carriers, most shareholders think that more of the value is going to accrue to the services that run over that technology, or indeed to the companies that are providing the hardware and software that go into making the infrastructure that carriers are deploying. But it's not all doom and gloom. For about 3 years now, we've been running an annual survey at BI looking at investor attitudes around 5G. In our latest poll that we ran in March, we found that about 70% of respondents see 5G as an important part of their investment screening process. Importantly, we also saw that about 43% of those respondents consider that they're more optimistic now than they were a year ago about the outlook for 5G, which we find encouraging. We also found that the vast majority of those respondents see 5G contributing to growth for the industry, and about 60% of respondents expect at least 5% expansion in the industry revenue pool from 5G over the next 5 years. And if we look at what the GSMA is saying, that's the Industry Association for the Mobile Industry, they expect mobile industry revenues to grow by about 10% by 2025 to about $1.15 trillion. What we also see from our survey is the important role of enterprise services in the future of 5G for carriers. And as you can see from this chart, about 36% of our respondents identified enterprise solutions as the most important driver of revenue from 5G for carriers over the next 5 years. And what we also saw from this survey was that about 2/3 of respondents see IoT and low latency use cases being the most important drivers of future growth in the industry, way more so than for just enhanced mobile broadband. Now, to realise all of that potential from 5G, the carriers still need to make a huge amount of investment in infrastructure. The GSMA thinks that the industry will need to invest about $900 billion in CapEx over the next 5 years. That's about 20% of average sales. And about 80% of that investment is expected to be spent on 5G. Now, carriers may get some help with that investment program from a number of recovery funds that have been set up. Most notably in Europe, we have about an 800 billion euro recovery fund set up by the EU, which could make available billions of dollars to the industry for infrastructure and digital projects. And to a lesser extent, we see the US administration's investment fund also helping to kind of ease the capex burden on the industry. But there's going to be a need to invest a lot of money in standalone 5G networks. Without standalone infrastructure, the true potential of 5G around low latency and massive machine-to-machine communication won't be unlocked. And as we can see from that pie chart today, not many 5G networks around the world are investing in standalone infrastructure. So that's going to be a really critical part of the puzzle going forward to actually realize the potential of 5G. What we're also going to see, I think, is a change in the way this infrastructure is actually built. In our survey, that we conducted in March, we found that over half of respondents think that open standards-based solutions, so open RANs in particular, are going to play a really important part in the future infrastructure for carriers. Now, those open standards-based solutions use general off-the-shelf computer hardware that helps to lower barriers of entry to potential new suppliers. It cuts the cost of components. It cuts the cost of software development. So that can potentially kind of make the investment much more attractive and reduce the speed to market for this technology. But it creates risks for companies like Nokia and Ericsson and opens the doors to new players like Samsung, Mavenir, and Parallel Wireless, to name just a few. Now, we also heard some commentary about space, and space definitely poses risks and opportunities for the traditional carriers. We've put up here the rapid evolution of SpaceX Starlink low Earth orbit constellation. Now has over 1,600 operational satellites and a thin global coverage. And we're going to see more of these LEO satellite networks come into operation in the next 2 or 3 years. It does potentially create some rivalry for the 5G carriers, but it also could be a great opportunity for 5G backhaul and even edge-based computing if the technology lives up to expectations. But it's not just about LEO constellations. There are potentially some threats. There's a company called AST Space Mobile in the US that's looking to deliver 5G from space over existing handsets. So that could be a more direct rival. And then we're also seeing nano satellite technology come into operation, which is potentially a threat in the IoT market. We're also seeing that climate goals are becoming an important part of the 5G sales pitch for carriers. Here we've highlighted an example from Vodafone that they're saying that basically helping their enterprise clients cut climate emissions is the most substantial way that they can contribute to the kind of global climate targets over the next 10 to 15 years. And we're seeing this more and more from carriers. And so I think as they take 5G to enterprise customers, it's going to be a really important drive. And as we see more pressure from corporates to cut emissions, this could unlock doors to growth for the carriers going forward. Ultimately, 5G is an incredibly complex opportunity set for the carriers, particularly in the enterprise space. This is a very busy chart, but basically it kind of sums up the complex capabilities that carriers need to refine and develop to make the most out of the opportunity, and the fact they're going to have to redefine the way they collaborate and partner with other parts of the ecosystem. Now, if they can do that successfully, they could unlock substantial profit growth, but it's going to take a lot of change in how they run their businesses. So I hope you found that an interesting introduction to the outlook on the sector. If you're a terminal client, you can dig into some of that research by following the links on this page, or you can go BI Go and click on the telecom sector and you'll find it all there. If you're not a client, please get in touch and we will help you navigate the research. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope you enjoy the rest of the event.
Hello, and thank you so much, Matt, for that. I found it really interesting. My name is Alex Webb. I'm going to host this next panel, which is about 5G, the IoT and sustainability. And I'm delighted to be joined by Enrique Blanco, who's the Chief Technology Officer at Telefonica, Anne Chow, the CEO of AT&T Business, and Matt Kelly, the CEO of JBG Smith. Now, sustainability is a bit of a knotty subject as far as 5G is concerned, because on the one hand, it will of course make it a lot easier to monitor and manage energy consumption in cities and factories, or indeed the home. But then there is the consumption created by 5G itself. At the moment, Ericsson estimates that the annual energy cost of running the world's telecoms networks is about $25 billion. Nokia, in fact, puts it closer to $80 billion. And higher frequencies also mean that denser, smaller telecom communication cells are needed, and therefore more antenna. So the industry body, the GSMA, estimates that 5G could triple carriers' energy costs. I think it'd be good to start with a lot of the pros and the tools that can be used. And we're fortuitous with our timing because today AT&T and JBG Smith announced a partnership to build a 5G city in the DC area, I think technically in Virginia. Boeing's East Coast HQ is going to be there, as is the new Amazon second HQ. Perhaps, Matt, can I start with you? You know, how will, if I live or work in National Landing, how will my experience differ from the experience I might have in a major conurbation in North America or Europe at the moment?
Yeah, and thanks for that intro, and thanks for having us here today. We did announce this morning the new partnership that we have put together with AT&T to make what we call National Landing, which you're correct is part of Northern Virginia, part of the DC metro area. It's an area about 4 miles long. It's about the size of downtown Austin that we control, and we're in a unique position because we do happen to control a very high concentration of the real estate there. And as you pointed out, antenna placement is key to 5G operability. And we're one of the few positioned to actually control enough of the placement area to do this relatively quickly. And we've chosen to partner with AT&T here in order to make it happen. And what we expect is that it will make 5G high-speed, ubiquitous 5G service available to residential, commercial, retail customers, visitors, guests, anybody and everybody. This is not meant to be some proprietary, exclusive thing. This is really meant to be very much like public infrastructure, and we'll make it available to anybody and everybody who wants to communicate wirelessly, which, as we all know, increasingly is pretty much everyone. So whether you live there or work there or shop there or go out to dinner there or go to the movies there or whatever, you will have access to that level of connectivity and speed.
And from your perspective, how does that get you excited? You know, you're thinking then, how can I take that presumably and offer it to some of my customers in that area, business customers, of course. What are the applications that you're really excited about?
Yeah, thanks, Alex. And I'm thrilled to be here with all of you, and so appreciative to Matt and the JBG team for our partnership, where we're so excited to be part of. So there's so many facets of this partnership and National Landing that have us excited. First of all, one of the things I think all of us would agree that we have learned together over the last year and a half is that the demand for and the criticality of connectivity and networking is forefront, right? It is, in fact, you can think of it as a utility, and fundamentally, if you are going to conceive of and build a smart city, you need a smart network, and you need that infrastructure underlying in all facets of that city and of that campus and of that community. And so for us, the opportunity to be that underlying smartness, if you will, in the network will really unleash and enable many different types of applications and use cases. A couple of examples of that would be in retail, right? The opportunity to have immersive experiences for customers with a magic mirror type of thing, where you don't have to change to try on new clothes or outfits or be in a boutique, all right, to see what that looks like. But truly an immersive, interactive experience could be enabled with 5G. Other examples are around the industrial opportunities that remain in the area, the Amazon HQ2 around distribution and logistics, and how we might enable more efficiently their processes. Boeing or Lockheed, and the support of these really iconic companies, will yield big efficiencies and outcomes. I think from a consumer standpoint, it's exciting to think about even just the parks and entertainment, right? When you go to a community, very much redefined in a breakthrough and innovative way, like National Landing intends to be, you can think about how to interact differently around entertainment and concerts that may be in the park, right? That could be another wonderful opportunity to develop, different interactions with artists who may be physically there and artists who may be remote, and to have them kind of work in a seamless way. You could envision augmented reality or virtual reality experiences which are unleashed, whether they are for, kind of an arts kind of experience or even gaming, right? I mean, gaming can now be mobile truly, and can happen outside or inside any kind of four walls. And so these are the types of examples that will become real and come to life in really a really profound way in this 4 mile, in this 4 mile square area that Matt has outlined. And just, we see so much opportunity both in the business environments as well as in the consumer environment to drive breakthroughs. That does not even include the way that we will have an opportunity to support the traffic in and out of the Pentagon or Reagan National Airport, right, as another hub of the community that will have, retail, restaurant facilities, all the things that we have become used to in travel centers and travel hubs too.
I mean, is this, in terms of Internet of Things, I remember I used to cover Siemens 8 years ago, and they were talking about smart cities at that stage. How much of this stuff now is still learning, and how much is proof of concept? Like, where are we at the evolutionary process? I mean,
yeah. So from
our project, I should say. My apologies.
Matt, do you want to start first, and I'll pop in there if you'd like?
Yeah, I would say we're very much at the implementation of operability right now. So 5G is not in proof of concept phase anymore. It's all about how quickly can we roll it out, and where can we roll it out and have true ubiquity. Because to derive the greatest advantages in terms of operability of the Internet of Things, smart devices, autonomous vehicles, smart robots that can perform functions in a dense urban environment, you really just need the connectivity. We know how to create the networks. We know how to operate them and run them. And when I say we, I'm really talking AT&T and folks like them. But what we need is the implementation, and that's the stage we're at right now. The implementation of 5G does require a lot of antenna placement relatively close together, as you pointed out at the top of the session here. That requires that real estate owners have to cooperate, and that public jurisdictions have to be part of the equation. And here in Arlington County, in the city of Alexandria, and with our control of the vast majority of the real estate in this already built 12 million square foot and growing commercial district with over 12,000 residents living in housing there today, the place is already there. What we're doing is we're adding the network infrastructure to enhance the speed and ubiquity of that connectivity. And what we expect to happen is that anyone who wants to innovate within that context, wants to innovate in product manufacturing, design, study, whatever it may be, who requires 5G in order for their device or their innovation to work, and they want to do it in a dense urban environment that's already built and has lots of people, has all the interference issues you have to navigate and deal with for something to be market ready, they're going to want to come here and do it here. And that's our hope and our expectation, and that the people who are already there will also be able to take advantage of it, whether they be an apartment resident, or they be a commercial office building tenant, or they be a retailer who's operating there.
And Enrique, this seems like a good moment to bring you in. Telefonica has obviously been doing a huge amount in smart cities for a long time, perhaps helped, of course, by the hugely successful fiber rollout in Spain. And I hope I'm not making too many assumptions there. I guess, what are the applications particularly as we move into 5G, that you're already seeing that are happening right now that you think have been successful, and perhaps some of the learning processes you've experienced to get there?
Yeah, but it is not all about 5G. So the right formula is FTTH, fiber plus 5G plus cloudification. So only when you are putting all these three pillars in your mindset, only when you are really executing these connectivities that they are helping you to be really sustainable with these three main technologies. So I repeat, the FTTH, 5G, and the virtualization of the cloudification, you are ready to offer your customers a real digitalization. And this means that you are offering to the customer all the possibilities, trying to put over these layers the different application. So the first immediate that you can see it is how the customer, they are improving the enhanced mobile broadband perception. This is helping you trying to grow. But later on, it is all the IoT services, or all the IoT with the density. Our experience, it is that with the 3.5 gigahertz, so we can offer our customer density. We can offer our customer an extraordinary quality and capacity. So going through density and new services, VR, as I mentioned before. But the main customer that we see that they are really getting all these benefits, it is the B2B customer. So how we can offer with the private network capabilities, with the low, extremely low latency, we see that they are the main use cases that they are helping us trying to grow in this. And in parallel, we are analyzing how the gaming and how the virtual reality will be pushing us, trying to be much more close to the customer in the C-band, which is extremely important. But if you don't combine both of them, it is just impossible to offer the layer that when you need to put deploy all the services and all the use cases.
And from a sustainability perspective, though, if you're talking about these B2B applications, is there a concrete one that really jumps out for you?
Yeah, FTTH, when you are building a massive FTTH deployment.
For the people who don't know.
Yeah, sorry, fiber to the home. So with the optical termination at home. So we have today up to the 24 million of home passes in Spain. So and we are reducing at 85% the power consumption with the FTTH. 85%. So we are extremely efficient. So we reduce the carbon footprint massively. So we are building, once you are delivering the FTTH, you are offering your customer 1 gig symmetric, but you're reducing up to the 85%. So the power consumption. So it's amazing. So this is one of the main consequences of to deploy fiber. It is not only you are offering your customer quality, you are offering the right service. It is you are being sustainable. So embedded in the technology, and this is one of the most successful cases what we see. And we are Telefonica in 2024 in Spain. We will be swapping all the copper. The copper disappear in Spain, offering our customer. And this is great, not only for the that we will be recycling all this copper. It is great because we are reducing, first of all, the power consumption. Second one, we are reducing all the activity that it is around the traditional copper. So, and this is one good example when the technology it is working together with the sustainability and offering an extraordinary high quality to the customer. And we go to the 5G, which is what we mentioned. So in the 5G, it is true that the power consumption of the 5G, it is higher, but it is true that it is a 90% with higher efficiency if you compare the cost per giga. And we are growing every day. So this means that it is true that you are growing in consumption, but it is true that you are being much more efficient. And you can adapt the consumption with the traffic. This is not happening in the previous technologies. This means that with the power consumption, you are adapting this through the real traffic that you are in the cell side. This means that finally, in the final result, it is not so higher as you mentioned before. And you need to understand that in Telefonica, we did a big effort guaranteeing that in our main markets, more than all the power that we are getting to the market, it is renewable. it is been using so alternative power consumption. And this is helping us trying to send the same message. 5G, FTTH, they are getting benefit from the carbon footprint, and we are using massively the renewable energies. This is the only way, because you cannot digitalize your customers. So if you are not doing with technology, it is helping you to be sustainable, but real sustainable. And this is
just to clarify, to make sure I've understood, you're sort of saying then that like energy consumption from the actual network is going to increase, but that is offset by the kind of advantages. And do you think it is offset by the advantages in terms of more efficient processes on behalf of many of your customers?
Yeah, it is going to, but let me some number of Telefonica. In the past 6 years, we grow our traffic and we multiply by 5, by 6 in the mobile network, but we reduce the total consumption 1%. It means that we multiply by 5 and we maintain flat, or we reduce 1% our energy consumption. So this means that we have the capabilities, even growing and multiplying by 5, by 6, we can maintain flat the power consumption. And this consumption, it is fully provided by renewable energies. This is the virtuous cycle. We can do it. It is extremely hard to do it, but we can do it. So would you multiply by 5, you can maintain flat your consumption.
Is that your
one of the things I would add
well,
to that?
Oh, sorry, please. Yes, of course. Sorry, please.
No, I was just going to add to that one of the reasons why this partnership and what we're doing in terms of our accelerated and first real smart city at scale initiative here is serving those customer needs and the use case of what's coming. Because as you know, we're right now under construction and planning almost 5 million square feet of new office space that will house Amazon's headquarters, and then also a $1 billion innovation campus anchored by Virginia Tech in the same neighborhood. And both of those users are here in part because of fiber ubiquity in this neighborhood, but also because of what we can do on top of that. And the FTTH will be put to its greatest use when we start construction on the next 3,000 apartment units that we have planned in this submarket out of a total of more than 5,000 over the medium and longer term. So that's almost a 50% increase in the number of multifamily units within this one market over the course of the next 5+ years, all of which will be built with network access and operability in the context of what we've just been discussing here. So it'll be a perfect use case for that, and an opportunity for all of that new housing to operate in a way when obviously we'll have more people working from home, probably indefinitely to some degree, and using and demanding that level of speed and access.
Mm-hmm. And if I can take that innovation theme a little bit further, Alex, if you don't mind, if I could take that innovation theme a little bit further around.
If you keep briefly, because I do have a question I'd like to get to. Yeah.
Oh, okay. But I just really want to reinforce that it is the combination of fiber plus 5G plus edge computing that brings these to life, right? And so if we could envision, to Matt's point about having that underlying infrastructure there, will enable us, right, to work with the local municipalities, the local government around, start thinking about the smart meters as everyone has talked about. The enablement of more electronic vehicles, just the ability to enable city planning, right, in a way that supports sustainability, in a much more systemic and profound way is a big part of how this partnership will be and is fundamentally different.
I guess I have a question for you, Anne. Just thinking about your sort of business operationally. But when you're looking at the opportunity provided by 5G, on the one hand, there is also then an increased cost because, not just in deployment, but also operationally, the kind of OpEx of energy use is going to be presumably quite considerably bigger. How do you think about those factors, and how does that affect the way you deploy it?
Yeah, so for us, I mean, it all is in the design and the architecture of our network, right? And so while we anticipate those shifts occurring in terms of 5G, it is not. I mean, it's something that we're planning for. And so as it relates to our own efficiency and our own objectives to become carbon neutral by 2035, to be continuing to use renewable energy, it is not a concern for us in that sense of how we're making our investments and committing to 5G, right? I mean, we are re-engineering our processes as well, right? As a large enterprise, as a large enterprise client, and so fundamentally, in terms of the shift of our fleet, right? As an example, the shift of how we think about waste management, consumption, water consumption, otherwise energy consumption, it's all kind of architected in how we move forward, in how we do our network engineering and run our operations, both from a customer-facing perspective as well as the operations of our network. And so it is, it's something that we, fully have confidence in terms of this pivot and this shift and this commitment to a 5G, fiber-enabled, fiber-fed infrastructure empowered by edge compute.
And when you talk about, I was reading your ESG report earlier, the 2035 target of carbon neutrality, is that's purely your own operations, not including the sort of positive impact that you might have on some of your customers?
That's right. That's our own impact within our own company, let alone what my team and I do, as you pointed out, right, on the opportunity side of how we enable businesses, how we enable the public sector. And I think what is so powerful here is that we've got a private-private partnership that is very much aligned with doing, supporting the public good, supporting the community. And to the point of innovation, the Virginia Tech Innovation Center, Alex, you asked earlier about what area are we very excited about and where we've seen actual success, right? We've announced and had several, proof of concepts with various universities around the country, whether it's, University of Missouri, Texas A&M, most recently, University of Connecticut, where 5G and fiber and edge computing, multi-access edge compute, will shift the fundamental learning experience, right? This is all about getting people out to campuses and what kind of learning experience and research opportunities will be different, right, in a 5G-enabled world. And so if you can envision students being able to, without having to travel, ideate and see in incredible dimension works of art and masterpieces that reside all across the globe, or if you can envision what scientists will be able to do, and engineers will be able to do to ideate.
That sort of, right. Yeah, that AR stuff is really interesting. I think that for the sustainability perspective, which, we're trying to focus on a little bit today, I would like to return to Matt on one question, actually, because, you are clearly talking to, you've now kind of got this deal with AT&T. And presumably now you go out, or do you go out and have conversations with other utilities, or have you had conversations with other utilities who would see this partnership and go, this provides us an opportunity? You mentioned previously that it makes the district something of a test bed for other companies, but how does it inform the way you talk to other utilities, and what is the nature of those conversations?
Well, there are a lot of layers and a lot of parts to the smart city, and there will be a lot of players involved in that over time. We have every expectation of that. And it won't be just us on the real estate side either. We have a lot of neighbors and others who, every provider is active in this area. It's obviously a very high density and very attractive marketplace. I mentioned earlier what's coming with respect to Amazon and Virginia Tech. There are lots of others that have seen what they're doing and understand why they're doing it and want to follow suit. And we are seeing evidence of that already. I think the sustainability argument that really matters most here, when you think about sustainability and why is it important, I think to many people it's obvious, but we're not going to constrain our way out of the impact we're having on the climate. We can't just tell everyone stop driving your cars and start walking. We have to innovate our way out, and I believe this is a really important step on the road towards that day when we have figured out ways to innovate, to make ourselves more efficient, to make ourselves less impactful and less taxing on the climate and on the planet. And we as real estate owners have a hugely important role to play in all of that because of of how we can build our buildings and what we choose to do. The buildings that we're building for Amazon will all be the most sustainable buildings ever built in this submarket. Our new multifamily buildings will be among the most sustainably built and sustainable to operate in this market. And the older building stock that we have here will be made more sustainable by virtue of what we're doing with our partner AT&T here, because it will enable us to manage our assets in ways that are more efficient. And then on top of all of that, this should attract more innovators to a place like this, who come here because they can get access and connectivity they otherwise can't get in other places. And it will be the innovations that are built on that backbone that will be part of the equation in innovating our way towards a better future from a climate and sustainability perspective.
I'm going to take an audience question. Enrique, this might be an interesting one for you because, of course, Telefonica, much as its history is as the Spanish national carrier, you do have huge global businesses. And the question is about how 5G rollout can accelerate economic advancement on a global scale. How do you guys think about deploying 5G and I guess then possibly by extension fiber, perhaps the other way around, fiber and by extension 5G in rural areas? And how do you weigh the kind of the investment imperatives with the kind of economic impact that might have?
So this is an extraordinary question. So but it is not only about 5G. It is I go back. It's 5G plus fiber deployment, because only with 5G it is only be thinking in one part of the equation. If you see what we have been doing in Spain and in Brazil, what we have been doing in Argentina, in Colombia, in Peru, with the FTTH and the 5G deployment, even in Latin America, it is not still so in a massive deployment for the 5G. We are covering with FTTH all the capabilities that we can do, going through rural areas or semi-rural areas. And if you see in Brazil, it is a huge country. It is just a continent. We have more than 20 million of home passed. It is true that we have still a big effort, but we are doing it and we are combining. We are improving the 4G or 4.9G with a very good capacity and quality. We are going with the FTTH capabilities and we are reaching with the 5G. It is not only one technology. It is how you can really offer your customer this. And in Spain, so we cover the initial 22 million of home passed, but so the rural areas, so we are covering with 4G, and it is very similar that we are doing in Germany. We have been, first of all, guaranteeing the coverage that Benet site is asking for us with the 4G or 4.9 with massive MIMO with a very good capacity, and now we are reaching the 5G step by step. And this is something that needs to be consistent. It is a big effort in CAPEX, and even we are analyzing different financial models trying to go faster with the FTTH and with the 5G deployment. But finally, if I go through the sustainability and just a final comment, Telefonica will be a net zero emission in 2025 in our main markets. So this is consistent, this is key, and the technology it is helping us. But it is not what is the formula for Telefonica. It is how this consistent approach in the evolution of the technology, it is helping to the customers to reduce the CO2 emissions. If I see what I can do in the next years, helping to my customer to be digital really, so we can reduce more than 5,000 tons of CO2. This is not only our own business, it is how we can help with the 5G evolution, with the FTTH capabilities, with the virtualization that we can reduce even at 30% of the consumption of energy using this technology. It is how we can help to the societies when we are serving, how we can help to the customer with the digitalization that it will be extremely competitive. It is working together with the sustainability in terms of emissions of CO2. And this is when we play a role which is critical. So we can multiply by 10 the emissions if we help to the societies and to the customer to go through the digitalization. And this is including all dense areas, semi-rural areas, and rural areas. And this is our main target. So, and this is what we're trying to do and we're pushing.
So there's a thunderstorm kicking off in North London, so I hope you're not making too much noise. All that stuff, which is great for society and for the world as a whole, it is also clearly part of the business proposition, right? You're going to your customers and saying, we can help you reduce your costs by reducing your energy costs and among other things, cybersecurity and many other things that we've talked about. I suppose, Anne, when does 5G cloud, for instance, start delivering real revenue? When do these business opportunities, these pitches really start translating and start gaining traction?
Yeah, so we've actually been working with various enterprise clients across different industries over the last couple of years. And so 5G's use cases and 5G solutions are generating revenue today. If your question is at scale, right? I mean, I want to go back to what Matt said, which is the environment that we're creating at National Landing example is when you build it, they will come, right? Just to kind of, correlate to the field of dreams, analogy. We are in a place now in the economy and society and the world as a whole where connectivity and that fundamental infrastructure, right, is required to innovate across every industry, across every business, as well as in our residential and consumer experiences as well, right? This is why 5G is called the next industrial revolution in terms of what it will trigger. So the time is now, right? And we are seeing more and more clients interested in innovating around how will 5G, fiber, and edge computing fundamentally shift the way they think about delivering customer experience, the way that they decide to utilize their brick and mortar locations, the way that they will incorporate robotics into their end-to-end processes. So the time is now. And I believe, and my team and I believe, I mean, we are here to serve business clients, including the public sector of all shapes and sizes. This will be an incredibly exciting several years ahead of us. But the time is now. The time is now in terms of 5G becoming a reality. It is a reality, and we are, solving for problems today and innovating to try to figure out how to drive breakthroughs in the future. And that's what we're going to see and experience and be part of in partnership with Matt and his team on National Landing over the upcoming years.
We are running out of time. Enrique, I have another reader question for you. If you can keep it really brief, that would be helpful. And then, Matt, hopefully I'll come to you on one more thing. Might be over being ambitious here. When you look at the carbon neutrality, 5G is going to use a lot more energy. Are there technological ways of reducing just the energy consumption of 5G?
5G itself, it is you need to consume higher power energy, no doubt. First of all, you need to do it with renewable. This is key. And the second one, so if you compare which is the cost, because the customer are asking more and more traffic. So if you compare the cost per giga, 5G is much more efficient. So
it's basically about offsetting.
I repeat, but so the 4G it is included. It is including that you can adapt the consumption with the traffic. This means that this is not a flood. Doesn't matter which is the number of customers that they are connected. No, we can adapt. In the night, if there is not customer, there is not consumption. And this is a new paradigm with the 5G. It is true that 5G it is, but our customer, our societies are asking more and more. So, and we are trying to use all the technological drivers that we have, trying to reduce the consumption. It finally, in the next 5 years, all our customers that are using 5G, maybe we can grow, but we will be growing so in an extremely efficient way. So if you maintain 4G, so the traffic and the consumption will be higher than with the 5G. So this is what we are working, and we are putting all the technological drivers trying to go in this way.
Matt, very briefly, you've sealed this really exciting partnership. What's the next conversation you're excited to have? What does this enable you to do next?
Well, the conversations that led to all of this are the conversations that we have over and over again with all of our customers, which is that they want to go where they can access the latest and greatest in connectivity, speed, ubiquity. And that was a consistent theme. That's number 2, right after labor. Everyone's looking for the best talent and the best labor, the best talent they can hire. After that, it's connectivity. That was when we really decided we need to be leaders on this, as we have been in sustainability and as we have been in physical placemaking. This is an important and critical element of what we call digital placemaking. There will be other developments. There will be other partnerships and other layers to all of this that you will hear about in the years ahead. I'm not going to make news here by letting cats out of bags, but we're really excited about it. And this is, I think, one of the most important and critical steps along that road to making this the first real smart city at scale in the country.
Well, that seems like the moment to thank Matt Kelly, the CEO of JBG Smith, Anne Charles, CEO of AT&T Business, Enrique Blanco, Chief Technology Officer of Telefonica, and of course all the other panelists and speakers we've had today. Thank you also to Accenture, the sponsor, for making this briefing possible. If you'd like more information on this topic from Accenture, please visit the resources tab on your screen. And to our audience, both within and beyond the Bloomberg community, thanks for joining us. You can continue to follow the conversation on Bloomberg Live, on LinkedIn, Twitter, or indeed like us on Facebook. And to learn more about other upcoming events, please visit our website at bloomberglive.com. Finally, to everyone who joined us today, don't forget you can watch this again on demand. Thank you, and please stay well.